Today we are going to talk about how to do our value moonrise design. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm in Drive. Remember to get to Drive, we want to make sure we go up to our little dots in the corner and it'll show Drive, and that's what you click right here. Next thing what I want to do is I want to make sure I open up a new Google drawing. So I go to New, I go to More, and I go to Google Drawings, and I click that. Now remember, this is what I'm going to see. This is my canvas. The first thing I always do is I name my drawing, because if I don't name it, I'm going to have a hard time saving it. So I'm going to call this Value Moonrise. I put my name, and we're going to get started. Before I do anything, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this is in the correct folder. So I go to File, I go to Move, and I'm going to look for my Art Classroom folder. Now for you guys, that's what you're going to do. You're going to put this in your Art folder. For me, because I already have I have a bunch of drawings for you guys, I'm going to actually put it in my Google Drawings folder. So I'm going to make sure it's in the right folder, and I'm going to make sure I hit Move or Move Here. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I need my background. So I'm going to go up to Shape. Once again, I'm going to go to Shape again, because remember we got all of these. So I hit Shape, and I'm going to hit Rectangle. And I'm going to do a huge rectangle that covers the entire canvas. So I'm actually going to click and hold my mouse down and drag out my mouse all the way. Now, if you don't do it that way, the other way you can do it, and I'll delete this, the other way you can do it is you can just click anywhere on the canvas, and then you get like a small or medium-sized square or rectangle. And then if I put my mouse over any of these blue boxes, I can stretch out my shape so that it covers the entire canvas. The next thing I want to do is I want to change the color. So I'm going to go to Fill Color, and I want to make like a dark blue, but I don't really want this dark because I need to make sure that the black I use later will stand out. So I'm going to go to Custom. Once again, you make sure your transparency is all the way to the right, because if it's too far to the left, you see through your color. So I'm going to go a little bit more with my hue. Just move it over just a little bit. And then I take this and I move it downwards, because if I keep it up here, notice how light that color is. That's not what I want. I want a darker color. So I'm going to move it down just like this. And maybe I need a little bit more blue, so I'm going to move it over just a little more. There we go. That actually looks really good. And if you want, you can copy this number to get the same color blue that I'm going to get. So if you copy this number and you type it into this box, you'll get the same color that I'm going to get. I'm going to hit OK. And now there is my blue background. The next part is I'm going to make a giant sort of corner of a circle right in here. And that's going to be part of the moon radiating outward. But there's not really a shape for anything like that, if you notice. I mean, this is pretty close, actually. So let's see if we can try this. It might work, I'm not sure. So let's drag this out. Now notice though, what happened here is this color is now the same as this, and I don't want it to be the exact same color, because if it's the exact same color, I cannot see it. So I go up to Fill Color, I go to Custom, and I'm going to lighten it just a little bit. Just like that. And if I hit OK, notice now that this is a little lighter. This actually looks a little too light compared to this. So I'm going to go back up to Custom, I'm going to darken it just a tad, not too much. That looks better. Now if I click away, if you notice, I can see like a black line around that sort of teardrop shape. I'm going to click on my teardrop shape again, and I'm going to hit border color. Border color is right up here. It's right next to fill color. It looks like a little pencil, so I'm going to click it, and if I hit transparent, my border is now gone. I'm actually going to make this teardrop just a little bit bigger. But now the next thing I need is I need to keep going inward for my moon. So I'm going to go back to shape. I'm going to go to shapes again. I'm going to look for donut. And that's this one right here. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to kind of make it stretch out. So if as I stretch it out, you're going to notice that it looks actually like a donut. I'm going to stretch it out so it almost touches the edges. I say almost because I still want to see a little bit of the blue behind it. Now, while this is selected, one of the things I want to do is I want to make this inner part wider. And I do that by touching this little yellow diamond right here. Make sure my mouse is over it, and if you notice, as my mouse is over it, it becomes a little cross. If I click and hold, I can make that inner part bigger or even smaller. And I want to make this bigger right now. Just like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change up the color of this particular ring. And I'm going to go into my fill color. But this time I'm going to do it as a gradient. So you see how I have solid and I have gradient. I'm going to click gradient. And I kind of want this dark blue cornflower one right down here. And this is the one you want to get. So I'm going to click on that. And as you notice, it's a little bit different than this color, but it kind of still gives a nice difference between the two. And you notice that the inner part of this circle is a little bit lighter. That's what's called a radial gradient. A radial gradient is when you go from a light to a dark, whether the light is on the inside and the dark is on the outside, or you reverse it. Now, once again, I want to make my border disappear, so I'm going to go up to border color. I'm going to click transparent, and now my border is gone. Now I'm going to do one more inner donut circle, and I'm going to go, so once again, I go to shape, shapes again, and I go to donut. I'm going to try and make sure that I get this guy to fit in right here inside the inner part of my first donut, just like this. Now I'm going to make the inside part a little bit wider for when I do my moon. And once again, I'm going to do a gradient for this. So I once again go to fill color. I switch from solid to gradient. And I want to do this lighter one. So this was the one I used before. I want to switch to this lighter one. So I'm going to click on this one. And last but not least, I make sure I take off my border color. So I hit border color, I go to transparent, and this is what I've got. Looks pretty cool so far. Now we need the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to once again go to shape. I'm going to hit shapes again. I'm going to look for oval. Oval is the closest thing we're going to get to a circle here. So I'm going to click on oval, and just so I can get like an almost perfect circle, I'm going to click oval right here in the center. Now this is a very small circle. I need it to fit in here. In order to keep it a nice circular shape, I'm actually going to hit my shift key. So that way, as I drag it out, you notice that it stays a circle. It doesn't become like this, it doesn't become distorted. So if I keep hitting shift, then it's going to stay a circle. So so now I have my circle. It filled up that area in the middle of the last donut. And now I want to make it a gradient as well. So I'm going to hit fill color. I go to gradient. I want this light white radial gradient. So I'm going to click on that. And this is what I get. And once again, I want to make my border transparent. So I go to border color. I hit transparent. And now my border is transparent. Actually give my moon a little bit of pop. So I'm going to click on my moon and I'm going to go up to format. And what I'm looking for is format options. Now really quickly, if I didn't have anything selected and I went to format, I can't click on anything. So you have to make sure you're clicked on the shape you want. So I clicked on my moon, I go to format, and I go down to format options. I want to play with the drop shadow here. So I'm going to click on drop shadow and I'm going to click this little arrow right here. Now the first things first is I want to bring my transparency down because in the middle right here it's a little bit hard to see. So I want to bring my transparency down to about maybe 10. Now for my angle, this means the direction in which the shadow is going. So if you notice right now, there's a little bit of a shadow right down here at the bottom. I actually want to bring my shadow up top right here. So I'm going to move my angle almost all the way over. So right now it's about at 295. 295 is pretty good. The next thing I want to do is I want to play with the distance a bit. Now this you can play with as much as you want, so I'm going to maybe bring it out just a little bit. And as you notice, the further away it gets, the darker it is. And that's because the color is at black, and that's what you want. You want the color to be at black. Now I'm going to play with the blur radius. And once again, this is something you can have fun with. So as I blur it, notice how it gets blurred just like that. And it kind of spreads out a little bit more. So for closer to the left, it actually gets sharper. But as I move it to the right, it's going to get really blurry. So right now I have mine at 35, and 35 seems good. So this is pretty good. I like how this looks, so I'm going to leave this like that. So I'm going to close the drop shadow like that, and I'm going to exit out of my format options. And to do the stars, I go up to my shapes tool. Now for some reason, under shapes, you don't really see any stars. You see a lightning bolt, you see the sun, you see the moon, you see clouds, but you don't see stars. For some reason, stars are in what we call call-outs. And you see all these different stars with all these different amount of points right here. And I'm going to choose any one of these. You can, like, this is where you can have some fun with this. So I'm going to pick the 4-point star. And I'm going to do one right here. Click and drag it out. Now, one thing you want to make sure is that all your stars are white, because otherwise they don't really stand out very well against the dark blue. So I'm going to change the color to white. I'm also going to make my border transparent. So I go to border color and I go to transparent. So this is what my star looks like right now. I'm going to duplicate this a couple times so I can have them all across the sky. So I have my star selected. I go to edit, and then I go to duplicate. And that makes the star exactly the same as the first one. And I'm going to keep doing that a couple times before I do anything else. So once I have like a couple stars, I'm going to start playing with size. But first things first is I'm going to make sure I have at least 10 stars. And as you notice, you could also do Command D or Control D. So I'm going to do that. And as you see, I can start getting more stars. Just like that. Now is when I'm going to play a little bit with size with these guys. So some of these I'm going to make probably a little smaller, because not all stars are the same size. Maybe one of these I make a little bit bigger. And there are my stars. I'm going to do my land, and I'm going to do that using a tool called the polyline tool. To get to the polyline tool, I go up to my toolbar and I see this line tool right here. It's right next to the arrow. There's a little arrow that's right next to the line. I'm going to click that and I look for polyline. I'm going to make sure I click that and my mouse becomes a cross. So with this, what ends up happening is it's going to help me create a shape. And the way to do this is to go very slowly and to make sure you're not clicking too close together or too quickly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my lower left-hand corner and I'm going to click. And it doesn't seem like anything happened. Now I'm going to go up and you notice that I have like a blue line, just like that. Now I'm going to click again. When I click again, that means that that line segment right there is not going to move. So now as I move across, you notice that my line is kind of following my mouse, but that first line is not moving at all, which is what I want. So now I'm going to go up a little bit, not too much. And I want to make sure that my segments of line are very far away. Because if I click my mouse too close together to a previous point, it is going to basically end my shape and I have to start all over again. So I'm going to click again. Maybe this time I go down a little bit. Maybe this time I go up a little bit more, or maybe, actually, you know what, I'm going to go down again. I'm going to go across, and this time I'm actually going to go all the way off my canvas. So I have like a little hill here. And I want to make sure I start off of my canvas both times. So I started off my canvas, I went onto it, and now I'm going off of it. So now I'm going to click again. I want to bring it down. And the most important part is bringing it over to meet the starting point. Because if it doesn't meet the starting point, I can't close it to finish it. So I'm bringing my mouse all the way over to the starting point, and I'm going to click it, and that closes the shape and helps me to make the shape. And now you notice how it's filled in. If it doesn't fill in like that, that means that it didn't close. And you have to make sure that it closes for it to be an actual shape. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color, change it to black, and I'm going to make sure I hit select so I can deselect this, because if I don't deselect it, I'm going to start clicking all over again and it's going to make a huge mess. Now I'm going to add the tree. So once again, I'm going to go polyline. This time I'm just going to start with the trunk. And I'm going to start down below the line for where the land is. And I'm going to click like right here. And my tree can be pretty much any sort of shape or size. If you want, you can make it curved. But notice how I'm still trying to keep my clicks far apart. So once I hit a point where I'm happy with how high up it went, I'm going to start going back down. And notice I'm trying to make the tree thicker as I go to the bottom, like where the roots are. And then remember, when you hit a point that you're happy with, you bring it across to close the shape. If you don't close the shape, you're not going to be able to fill it in. So I click, change the fill color, hit the arrow tool for select, and then click anywhere outside of my canvas. And there is the trunk of my tree. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some branches to the trunk of my tree. So I'm going to actually this time go back to a line tool. I'm going to go to the scribble line. And scribble is exactly what it sounds like. It's basically a scribble. So I'm going to click on this. And once again, you notice how my mouse becomes a cross. So I'm going to start by doing a curved line that kind of goes from here and it goes out. So I click and hold and I drag out just like that. And you see how this little line appears, but that's a little too small for me. So I want to make this a little bit thicker. To make the line bigger, wider, you want to go to line weight, which is right next to line color. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to start with going down to 12. And that gives me a very big branch, which is exactly what I want. And now I'm going to do another one just like this. And notice how when I scribbled it, it kind of went in the direction that I wanted it to go. Now I'm going to do some smaller branches. So I'm going to do one kind of coming out here. I don't want it that thick though now. So I'm going to go back to line weight. I'm going to make that an 8. That looks a little bit better. I'm going to do one coming here. Maybe now one going this way. Maybe one here. And now I want to do some little branches. So I'm going to start with one going this way. And once again, I'm going to change the line weight. Maybe this time I go down to 4. That's a good size right there. And I'm going to keep adding branches how I want them to look. So my branches are kind of like just starting to come off the tree. You can change them however you would like. And once I'm done, I go back up to my select. I click anywhere off the canvas. And now I have my tree. And don't forget, once you finish, you have to submit your work to the assignment.